welcome to my channel. My name is Angelina and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. So in the month of January, I managed to read 14 books for a total of 4,293 pages. 8 of these books were by authors of color and 3 of these books were actually rereads for me. Going into some more stats about the books that I read this month, I did read 1 audiobook, 4 ebooks, and 9 physical books. For the genres, I read 1 classic, 7 fantasy, 1 nonfiction, 2 romances, 2 sci-fi, and 1 thriller. As for the intended audience of these books, 4 were aimed at an adult audience, 9 were aimed at a YA audience, and 1 was aimed at a middle grade audience. 9 of these books were full-length novels, 1 was a novella, and 4 of them were graphic novels or manga, and this month they were all manga. And 3 out of the 14 books that I read were ARCs or advanced reader copies. 1 of the books was written by a debut author, 5 were by a new-to-me author, and 8 of the books that I read this month were by authors that I have previously read from before. So breaking down my rating of all of these books, 2 of the books that I read received a 1 star and 1 received a 1.5 star. I gave 1 book 3.5 stars. I gave 2 books 4 stars, 4 books 4.5 stars, and 4 books 5 stars. This gave me an average rating of about 3.79 out of 5 stars, which is quite good for me. I think I had a really good reading month. A lot of 4 to 5 star reads, which is what I like to see, and probably the most 5 stars I have ever had in a single month, which is really exciting. So I wanted to start doing my monthly wrap-ups a bit differently. As you can see, I have a larger stats sort of section in this video, and that's just because I like tracking my stats and I just felt like including it in the videos. But also when talking about the books, I am going to talk about all of my 5-star reads and my honorable mentions for books that almost became favorites of mine. And then after that, I'm just going to tell you the books that I read and the rating I gave them, but not really going into them. I do have Goodreads reviews for all of these books. My Goodreads is always linked in the description, so if you want to see my thoughts about those books, you can. But that is just because these wrap-up videos get very long, and you know, I don't always enjoy talking about the books that I didn't love. And sometimes if they're like 3-star books, I don't have a whole lot to say about them. So I just figured this was something I would try out and see if it worked better for me. But yeah, let's just start talking about the books that I gave 5 stars. The first book is My Flawless Life by Yvonne Woon. This is a YA thriller book. This copy is an advanced reader's copy. This book does come out in February, and I would highly recommend checking it out. This is one that really surprised me with how much I ended up loving it, and it basically follows our main character, Hannah, who goes to this elite private school, and her reputation has kind of gone down the drain. She has like these family issues that got out, and her whole school knows about it. So now she has started doing these jobs for other students to try and bury their secrets for them. And one day she gets an anonymous client that has this very big job for her. And this book pretty much just follows that. It's full of twists and turns. I loved the characters and Hannah herself, just seeing how she interacted with other characters, her friendships, and just how she interacts with her family and things. It was just so interesting, and it's one that I've thought about a lot since finishing it. This is one that I read very early on in the month, and I can see this becoming an all-time favorite, maybe making my best of the year list. This was absolutely amazing. I don't want to get too much into it because it is a thriller, so giving away any more could possibly spoil it, and I definitely don't want to do that. but I would highly recommend checking this one out. The next book that I gave 5 stars to is The Infinity Courts by Kimi Dawn Bowman, and this is one of the ones that I reread. I loved this book the first time around, and I actually decided to reread it because I own the second book, which I will talk about in a bit. But yes, I gave this one 5 stars the first time reading it, and I gave it 5 stars the second time around. And this follows our main character, Nami, who ends up dying at the very beginning of the book. That's not really a spoiler. And she goes to the afterlife. But when she arrives there, she learns that the AI have sort of taken over the human afterlife. Their AI system is sort of like our Alexa or Google or those things. So this AI has sort of taken over and sort of wants to create a living life thing for AI, and is sort of trying to get rid of humans. So our main character teams up with a bunch of other characters to try and sort of take down all of these AI who have infiltrated their afterlife. I just think this is such an interesting premise for a book, and it just does so much that I love. Our main character herself is just such an interesting character. She's like fascinating to see the way that she thinks. I love the sort of like found family aspect to the story, and just it's such a different premise from anything I've ever read before, and I love it. There's also a lot of twist in this one as well, and I would highly recommend checking out this series if you're looking for a YA sci-fi story. This is a great one to try out. So the next book that I gave 5 stars to is Lost in the Moment in Time by Sean McGuire. This is book 8 in the Wayward Children series, and this one follows our main character, Ancy, who after losing her father and going through her mother getting remarried, ends up running away due to circumstances and finding the shop where lost things go. And that is pretty much the premise of this. This is a novella, and this is the 8th book in the series, so there's not much I can say without spoiling it. But this is a series of portal fantasies where these children end up going through these doors that lead to a magical world. And yeah, that's pretty much the premise of the series. This one specifically is very heavy. All of them sort of have their own content warnings that you should check out, but specifically this one for grief and grooming and a few more things, but very heavy on those two. And it's just a story about how children who experience abuse have to grow up faster than they want to. And it's just a really beautiful story. This is one of my absolute favorites in the series. I loved it. I loved the characters and the themes that it was talking about. It was fantastic. Highly recommend this book. Highly recommend this series. And then my last 5-star read of the month, which is another reread, and that is Fable by Adrienne Young. I have read this entire series before, but at the end of 2022, a new book came out called Saint, and I really want to read it, but I wanted to reread this whole series first, and this is the first in said series. So this book follows our main character, Fable, who is the daughter of a very powerful trader, and he ends up leaving her on this island, and she obviously wants to get off this island, wants to go see her father again, and that is basically where this book takes off from. I absolutely love this series, but specifically this first duology following Fable. It's written so beautifully, and it has found family, it has sort of a slow burn romance, and I I love it. Rereading this is such a comfort. I believe this was actually my third time reading this book, and I can see myself reading it so many more times in the future. Reading it is just so comforting to me. They're pretty much just on a ship the entire time. I don't know, something about this world is just so cozy to me while being like really dangerous, and this is pretty much like an adventure fantasy book. I don't know, something about it. Adrienne Young's writing is just really beautiful. I love it. And yeah, I gave this 5 stars, highly recommend. Okay, so I have 3 honorable mentions, and these are all books that I gave 4.5 stars to. They were very close to being a full 5 stars, favorite books, that sort of thing. So let's talk about them. So the first is actually the first 3 volumes of Noragami, and I believe I gave volumes 1 4 stars and the other 2 volumes 4.5 stars, but I'm just going to put them all together. This is the omnibus edition of it, so I'm just going to talk about it all right here. And this is a manga series that one of my friends recommended to me, and I just really loved this story. And it's basically following Yato, who is a homeless god. He doesn't have any worshippers or anything, and so he's taking like any job he can get to sort of get his name out there, and it's very fun and lighthearted, but there's also like a darker aspect to it, and I just think it's balanced so well. I love the art style, I love the writing, and I love all the characters that we're getting to meet. They're all just great. Yeah, I love this. I can definitely see this series becoming a new favorite of mine, and I will be continuing on in it. And then I gave 4.5 stars to The Genesis Wars by Kimi Don Bowman. This is the next book after The Infinity Courts. And like I was talking about, I really love this series, and this sequel was so good. I don't think it's as good, obviously. It's a 0.5 star lower than the first book, but it's still really amazing. The way the plot picks up in this book was everything. The new characters that we get to meet, the things that happen, this book really sort of picks up on the romance, and I cannot wait till the 3rd book. I believe it's coming out later this year, but it hasn't really been announced. It doesn't have a cover or a synopsis or anything yet, but hopefully that does get announced, because this book has me asking so many questions. I need to know what happened to these characters, and I am so invested in the series. And again, I'd highly recommend it. And my last honorable mention is Namesake by Adrienne Young. This is the next book after Fable, and this again was a reread. Again, I loved it. I think I did give this one 5 stars my first time reading it, but I did bump it down this time just because I would have liked more at the end, but it's still so good. I love it so much, and it's just such a good conclusion to this first duology. I love it, highly recommend. Now let's just talk a little bit about all the other books that I read. So I read The Christmas Witch by Dahlia Faulkner, and I gave this one 1 star. It's a middle grade fantasy, and I really did not like this, which is sad because I had this really pretty edition of it, but I did not enjoy it. Then I read A Mystery of Mysteries by Mark Dawidziak, and I gave this one 2 stars. This is an arc that I read via NetGalley, and it's a nonfiction. Really disappointing, wasn't sort of what I was expecting from it. Then I read Sweat and Soap Volume 4 by Kanetsu Yamada, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is probably my least favorite in the series so far, but it's still really good. I'm still really invested in the series. I love it. and I can't wait till my library gets more volumes in. And then I read X's and O's by Amy Lee. I also gave this one 1 star. This is an adult romance, and this was one of my most anticipated releases, and it was really disappointing. Mainly the characters for this one, they just really didn't work for me. And then I read Metamorphosis by Ovid, translated by Stephanie MacArthur, and I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is sort of like classic poetry. I'm really glad I read this one. And also thank you to Penguin for sending me a finished copy of this. But those are the 14 books that I read in the month of January. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and comment below whatever you feel like commenting. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!